Fearless and fierce. That's what the theme of our summit here is today. And I'd like to call upon our next conversation. We don't have a conversation, but a keynote address on somebody who's been in this business, in the business of writing and covering, in the business of journalism for many, many years. Well, she's also written a book, and she's an integral part of this institute that we are right here at, St. Paul's Institute of Communication Education. Well, it's indeed my privilege to invite on stage Ms. Carol Andrade, who's the Dean of St. Paul's Institute of Communication Education. And Carol is going to be speaking about embracing change and challenging norms. Well, this is going to be something really interesting for a lot of the young generation, the Gen Z and the millennials out here. A lot to learn from the vast experience that Carol has to share. Come on, everybody. I'd like you all to welcome on stage Ms. Carol Andrade. Come on, give her a big round of applause.
Thank you. I don't know what I was expecting, but I'm not sure it was this. But I'm delighted to be here today. Sunil told me that he wanted me to talk about disruption and women disruptors in particular. And I was putting something together because, like a lot of people who are now used to their phones, I can't remember things, so when I have to give a speech, I need written copy in order to help me. And while I was putting everything together, I realized one thing, that I was a disruptor 50 years ago, and I didn't even know that. And I'll tell you how that came about. I came to Mumbai from Patna in Bihar, the real Bihari Patna, where I was born, where I was raised, where I was educated. And sometime, by the time I was 19 or 20, when everything else seemed to fall by the wayside, I decided I want to be a journalist. You're stupid at that age. So my mother said, if you want to be a journalist, it was all very ad hoc, very extempore, my entire choice of a career as well, because everybody you speak to now, if they are journalists, they will tell you they've always dreamed of being a journalist and it was their passion. It wasn't my passion. It wasn't my dream. But because I could write, my mother said, go and be a journalist. And if you have to be a journalist, join the Times of India. And where is the Times of India? Not in Patna. It's in Mumbai. So I came to Mumbai. And I did the exam that they set me, and I went from the first interview to the second interview to the final interview to rejection. I'd never been rejected in my life before. And I asked somebody afterwards, why was I rejected? And he said, you were too sure about what you wanted to be. You're a girl, and you said you wanted to be a reporter. And I said, so what's wrong with that? And he said, there are no women reporters in the Times of India. There were other women reporters in other newspapers, but not in the Times of India. And I said, you mean I shouldn't have said I wanted to be a reporter? He didn't say anything, he just shrugged his shoulders. 1.5 years later, I went for the exam again, and I went through the whole grind. And when they asked me what I wanted to be, I said, I'd like to be a reporter, but who knows whether I'm good enough for it, who knows whether I'll be suitable for it. But this program that you run gives me a whole year to try and find out. And I was selected. So it helps to lie, because I still wanted to be a reporter. It's just that this time, I strategized the whole thing. I had already found out in an internship I did with the newspaper that individually male heads of departments were not at all averse to having a woman reporter. It was because most of them had a preconception that women did not want to do everything, especially not night duty. Dangerous hai na, difficult hai na. So I played my cards very well, like a general. First and last time I've ever strategized so much. And I made up my mind that the last stint in my 1 year of training is going to be with the reporting department, because I had found out also that you tended to end up where you were last. So my last posting was with the reporting department. I made sure I worked very hard. Nothing can replace hard work. Made sure I worked very hard. And guess where I landed up after the 1 year and the postings were then decided? Guess where? No prizes, huh? You are not going to get any of those from me. I ended up with reporting. And I'm very pleased to tell you that while anybody asked me, was it very difficult to be a reporter? Times of India's first woman reporter. Everywhere else there were women reporters. Was it difficult? And I said, no, actually, I was so damn lucky. I was pampered to the hilt. And I've tried to pass that luck on to the deluge of women we had after that in Times of India. Remember, I'm not talking about any other newspaper, just the Times of India. We had a deluge of women coming into reporting as well. It was such a good feeling. So I don't think of myself as a disruptor. I just thought of myself as someone who wanted to buck the trend. And while reading up on women disruptors, I realized that that was a definition for a disruptor. Someone who was willing to take a chance to buck the trend. You'll be surprised, guys, even now. You know, areas that seem closed to us, they aren't really. All you need to do is push, and the doors open. This has been our experience, at least in this country. You know, there have always been disruptors. Few and far between, but very definite disruptors. Dating back to Rani Lakshmibai of Jhansi. She was the first one. Savitribai Phule. But by the time Savitribai Phule came, women were already making their mark everywhere. Because their courage laid the foundation for modern India. For other women, even a woman like me, to rise and to lead and to transform. So now you fast forward to today, Indian women are disrupting across sectors. Now it's not even called disruption. It is just, if there are women in the fray, you can be sure that they are going to give the men a really hard fight. So from boardrooms to Bollywood, we have seen here, from grassroots activism to high tech, there are women everywhere. So just, I will highlight a few examples that of women you already know. Falguni Nair of Nykaa, everybody knows. Geetanjali Rao, who's a social innovator, and she's of Indian origin, and she's collected international awards. Then, of course, Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw. You can't have a talk like this without mentioning her, so I'm mentioning her for that. No need to explain who she is. Avanit Chaturvedi, perhaps some of you know her name. She's our first Air Force trailblazer. She's our first female woman combat pilot. And she was selected in 2016. She qualified then. Two names who are very dear to my heart because they are journalists. They are young women. One is Sanuta Raghu. The other one is Mitali Mukherjee. Why I'm putting them together is because they have the same kind of track record, CVs, that a lot of journalists have nowadays. You know, when they transition from print to broadcast, to digital, to audio, everything. These girls also embraced technology. So Sanuta, what she is doing, she is actually at the Reuters Institute of Journalism Studies, where she is helping create a platform called Factivo, where she is going to, it's a part of the artificial intelligence movement. She's an initiator, and they are creating a platform where if you have content, that platform will enable you to design it to sort of multi-purpose it for several platforms. That's the kind of thing she's doing. As for Mithali, she's nothing. She's just the director of the Reuters Institute. So you can imagine someone who has a track record like NDTV and CNBC, she's now heading the Reuters Institute, and they're still very young women. So it's hard for women even now, because look what we are up against. We are up against patriarchy. I'm not going to give you any definitions. You know very well what I mean by patriarchy. They're up against economic exclusion, digital divides. They're up against stereotypes everywhere. But each woman disruptor in India is not just building something new. She's also breaking something unjust. And this disruption is not destructive, it is constructive. These women aren't just tearing down barriers, they're building alternatives. Inclusive, equitable, and sustainable systems. What can we do? You're probably wondering what we can do. What is our role in all this? All I can tell you is that you should support women-led initiatives, and there's no need to tell any of you over here. Not just as consumers, but as investors, advocates, and collaborators. Someone once said, don't ever say my institution or my company unless you're really willing to speak and act on its behalf. So that's what we should be doing. You can mentor and uplift, a lot of which is going on over here. You can mentor and uplift the next generation, especially in male-dominated fields like tech, politics, or science. And we're already seeing a lot of that. You can challenge stereotypes in our workplaces, in our homes and communities. And you can vote for policies that engender equity, equal pay, safety, and representation. We are beginning to discover ourselves as political animals, proper political animals, not just women who are members in parties and just show up acts of vandalism. There's that also, but I'm not advocating that. Because creating a culture that values women disruptors doesn't just help women, it helps society at large. That is not a cliche. That is not a bromide. It is true. When women rise, families rise, communities rise, economies rise. So back in 1968, poet Leonard Cohen, now I don't know whether this is true because it looks very convenient, but he is supposed to have said in 1968, he said, I can't wait for women to take over the world. Once they take over, men can do what they are most fitted to do. Okay, apologies to all of you guys over here, but it was said by another man. He said, then they can get back to gossiping and doing art. He meant drawing. I don't think we've reached that point yet. We can't pat ourselves on the back. He said that he knew the world would be run better than it had been, and I suspect it will. We are not there yet, but one day we will be. Till then, to every woman in this audience and beyond, to every woman who has dared to ask, why not me? Who has raised her voice when it was easier to stay silent, who has stepped forward when she was told to step back. We salute you. And to all of us here, let's commit today not only to honor all these disruptors and everyone here who is about to receive an award, and those even who have not and will be receiving awards in future. Let's commit to honor all of them and to ensure that our systems, our schools, and societies make space for millions more. Thank you.